How much do you know about propane, propane accessories, and how to make sure you do not run out? We are at a beautiful Maine State Park, but it has no hookups, so we are dry camping and relying on our RV propane appliances to keep us going. When we had a travel trailer, we were just taking a trip once in a while. Keeping track of our propane tanks was not that important. It had two 20-pound tanks. I would just lift the tank to see if it had propane. If it was low, I would just do a quick tank exchange. But when we bought our fifth wheel to travel full time, I wanted a better way to track how much propane we had at all times. Many people don't realize how important it is to keep track of your propane usage. So many appliances in the RV use propane. After looking at a few options out there, I came across the Mopeka tank check sensors that work with your smartphone. They were touted as the best way to accurately measure how much propane was in the tank. I ordered a set that included sensors for each of my two 30-pound tanks and a wireless display that I can mount in our control center cabinet. I was very skeptical about this device working as described, but I can say after using it constantly for over a year and a half that this thing is awesome and I wouldn't have a travel trail or a fifth wheel without one. They just work. I'm going to go over the Mopeka tank check, how to install it, and how we use it. First, let's review what propane is, how it is stored, used, filled, and transported, along with some important safety considerations. What is propane? Propane, also referred to as liquid petroleum gas, LP gas, or LPG, is an alternative fuel that's a byproduct of the natural gas processing and petroleum refining. It is safe, clean, reliable, and powerful. Is it liquid or is it gas? It is a gas in its natural state, then compressed into a liquid state for transport and use. Propane becomes liquid at minus 44 degrees Fahrenheit or under pressure. If the pressure is reduced, the liquid boils into a vapor. This lighter contains butane, which is another type of LPG. You can see that it's actually liquid until I hit the button, lowering the pressure and causing the liquid to boil and turn into a vapor. The propane in the RV propane tank looks just like this, a clear liquid that looks like water. Propane does not have any smell. A chemical called mercaptan is added to the propane at the factory to give it that rotten egg smell, so you can tell if there's a leak or if you left that propane appliance on by mistake. I will share a scary incident that happened to us later. Propane is very similar to butane, but it needs higher pressure to keep it at a liquid state. Butane is used in lighters because it takes much lower pressure to keep it liquid, which is why lighters like this can be made of plastic instead of steel. Propane is a highly concentrated form of energy that is very safe when stored and used properly in RV appliances like an RV refrigerator. But how does a propane flame make a fridge cold? An RV refrigerator works by absorption and a chemical reaction between ammonia and water and hydrogen. The ammonia is either heated by an electric element or a controlled propane flame, then it goes through an evaporation and condensation process which causes the cooling effect in the fridge. Lots of RVs come with residential fridges now, but if you're going to dry camp or boondock, an RV refrigerator can operate on propane is essential to reduce the drain on the battery system. When we have electrical hookups, we use our electric toaster oven a lot, but when we are dry camping, we rely heavily on our propane oven and stove. The propane oven works great once you get the hang of it. When it gets really cold out, our propane air heater gets our RV warm really quickly, but uses a lot of propane. Like many RVs, our water heater can work on propane, electric, or both, and gets the water hot really fast. The ability to use propane when we're not hooked up to electric is really essential. How is propane distributed throughout the RV? Each tank is connected to a two-stage regulator and by a high-pressure hose which drops the pressure to a usable pressure for RV applications like the stove, oven, and refrigerator. First stage from 100 plus PSI down to 10 to 15 PSI. Second stage down to 11 water column inches, which is less than 1/2 of 1 PSI. Some RVs have an automatic switching regulator like ours. Point the switch to the primary tank, that will empty first. When it's empty, it will automatically switch over to the secondary tank and the dial will turn red, letting you know that the primary tank is empty and you are now using the secondary tank. You need to have both tank valves on for this automatic switching to happen. The hoses from the regulator distribute to other RV appliances at low pressure. Always consult your RV manual and other provided documentation regarding the operation of your RV's propane system. Most RV propane tanks are made of steel, but sometimes in aluminum. They're required to have this collar to protect the valves. The important tank information is stamped on the collar. Tare weight, water capacity weight, and date of manufacture. The tare weight for our tank is right here, TW23. It's 23 pounds when it's completely empty. WC 71.4 means its water capacity weight, that's if the tank was completely filled with water, would be 71.4 pounds. This is used with a conversion table when you're getting your tank filled for them to tell how many pounds of propane can be put in this tank. This would convert to 30 pounds of propane. On the other side of the collar here, we have 1016. This tank was manufactured in October of 2016. The tank valve has a fill connection outlet, an on-off valve, a bleeder valve, and a safety relief valve. The safety relief valve is there to protect the tank from rupture if excess pressure builds up in the tank. Vapor pressure in a propane tank is about 130 psi at room temperature, but can get over 200 psi in hot temperatures or if the tank is sitting in the sun, which can trigger the safety relief valve to release pressure. A propane tank is approximately 80% liquid and 20% vapor when full. On the inside of the tank, there is an overfill protection device to ensure that the tank cannot be overfilled. The on-off valve on the handle should be triangular and have OPD stamped on it. On the bottom of the tank must have a cylinder foot ring to ensure that it stays upright and level and to keep the bottom of the tank off the ground so it won't rust. Tanks must be recertified 12 years from the date of manufacture stamped on the collar, and then every 5 years after that. How much propane does your tank hold? A 20-pound tank holds about 4.7 gallons of propane. Our 30-pound tank holds about 7.2 gallons of propane in each, and a 40-pound tank holds about 9.4 gallons of propane. Filling the tank. The cost for propane is usually about $3 to $4 per gallon, depending on where you get it. You get the best deal by buying it by the gallon because you only pay for what you get. The other way to buy propane for tanks like this is for a set fee. But how do you know if you've got your tank full all the way to the top? The tare weight, which is the weight of the tank totally empty and is stamped on the collar, plus the nominal size equals the weight of the tank when full. As an example, a 30-pound tank has a tare weight of 23 pounds. Add 30 pounds, so our tank should weigh 53 pounds when full. A 20-pound tank usually weighs around 17 pounds when empty, so it should weigh about 37 pounds when full. Propane is supposed to be filled on a scale by weight. The next time you're getting your propane tank filled, pay close attention to the scale to see if you're really getting a full tank. Do you have 20-pound tanks and just use the tank exchange program like Blue Rhino? Their 20-pound tanks are actually only filled with 15 pounds of propane, which is 3.6 gallons, and cost about $20, which means you're paying $5.50 per gallon. Safely transporting a propane tank. An RV propane tank must be transported in the proper upright position so that the pressure release valve is not immersed in liquid and is located in the vapor space in the top of the tank. If the tank is transported on its side like this, the pressure relief valve will not be able to operate properly. The propane detector is usually near the floor of the RV because the propane is heavier than air and accumulates near the floor. Check your RV carbon monoxide and propane detector often. Hit the button and make sure it beeps. When filling the RV at a gas station, make sure all the gas appliances are off and all the pilot lights are out. Fridge, water heater, stove, oven, etc. Some people do not like to travel with their propane appliances on. We turn our propane tanks off and turn off all gas appliances when we are on the move. Since we have solar panels and lithium batteries, we keep our refrigerator running on 120 volts while we are traveling. One day after we pulled in our slides, I was crawling across our kitchen island and hit one of the stove dowels with my knee by mistake. Just before we closed up the RV to depart, Alice asked, "Do you smell that?" Sure enough, I had turned on the dial on high on one of the stoves and the RV was filling up with propane. What if she didn't notice the smell in the RV and it filled up with propane on our 8-hour travel day? I hate to think what would have happened if the gas went unnoticed and ignited while driving down the highway. Now we checked the dials and shut off both propane tanks while on the road, and we added to our hitch-up checklist. The Mopeka Tank Check product is used to accurately measure the amount of liquid propane in your propane tank. How it works. Remember, propane under pressure is a liquid, and the sensors use ultrasonic technology to measure the depth of the liquid propane with accuracy within 1%. Remember the lighter earlier filled with butane? The tank check measures the liquid of the tank using this ultrasonic technology. The sensor also uses Bluetooth 4.0 to transmit the sensor data to your phone or the wireless display like this one. Your phone or tablet must have iOS 11 or Android 5.0 or higher. One side of the sensor has this green sync button for syncing with your phone or your wireless display. The other side is what makes contact with your tank. These two magnets hold it in place, and the black rubber pad in the middle is the actual ultrasonic sensor. Our kit came with 2 sensors, a wireless display, and 4 clip tanks to raise the height of the tank off the ground, and a tube of sonic grease. First, install the Mopeka Tank Check app on your smartphone. Make sure your phone has Bluetooth turned on. Turn on the app and it will immediately start looking for the tank sensors. Push the green button on your sensor for up to 10 seconds. The sensor will appear on your phone app as a new device. There it is, new device. Now put a dab of the sonic grease on the rubber sensor pad and position the sensor on the tank. Get it as close to the center as possible. I have the center of ours marked to make this easier. Now check for clearance. You may need to install spacers at the bottom of the tank for extra clearance. As you can see, ours was good. We didn't need to put any of the spacers on the bottom of the tank because we have about an extra 1/8 of an inch. We didn't need the spacers because where our tank is mounted in the RV, there's an opening in the bottom. But we do have to remove the sensors when we're getting the tank filled so we don't crush the sensor when it's sitting on flat ground or on a dirt surface. The spacers are also used to make sure there's enough space for that Bluetooth signal to escape from the bottom of the tank. Mopeka also sells the Tank Halo, which is a rubber plastic foot ring that fits on the bottom of standard 20, 30, and 40-gallon tanks instead of using the clip-on aluminum spacers. If you are mounting on a flat surface or on the ground, take care not to crush the sensor when putting it in the vertical position. With the tank in the vertical position, tap on the tank in the app and it will bring up the tank info screen. It shows the sensor battery indicator, the strength of the Bluetooth signal, and the quality of the signal. If the quality is 1 star or less, you may need to reposition your sensor on the tank. Tap the little wheel setting here in the top right-hand corner. Device name, you can give the tank a name. We have ours named right and left. Select the tank region, United States. Select your tank size, 20, 30, or 40, or arbitrary for unusual size tanks or horizontally mounted tanks. Just input your tank height. Set your alarm threshold. I keep mine set at 10%. You can even set your tank level units to centimeters or inches instead of the default percentages. Setting it to inches or centimeters can be helpful if you're trying to keep an accurate measurement of the gas usage for a particular appliance over time. Mopeka also offers this wireless display to monitor the sensor data, but is not necessary unless you don't have a compatible smartphone. But it can be handy to do a quick check on the tanks without whipping out your smartphone. I have mine mounted in my control cabinet. I just tap the tank button. After a few seconds or 2, it will display the tank level from empty to full with 5 LED lights. Setting it up is easy. Hold one of the buttons on the display until it starts to blink, about 5 seconds. Release it when the lights start flashing. Now push and hold the sync button right here. Push and hold the sync button on the sensor for up to 10 seconds until the display stops flashing. There, it stopped flashing. Now the sensor is synced. The display comes from the factory set up for a 20-pound tank, but you can change it to 30 or 40-pound standard vertical tanks instead. Hold the button that you want to change for up to 10 seconds. After 5 seconds, it will start to flash. Keep holding the button. A single light will appear. Keep holding. The single light will switch between red, yellow, and green. Red is for 20-pound tanks, yellow is for 30-pound tanks, and green is for 40-pound tanks. Release the button when the color you desire is lit. Red, yellow. For 30-pound tanks, that's what I want. Our two 30-gallon propane tanks can last for months if we are in warm weather, staying in a campground with electrical hookups. But when we are dry camping, we can empty both tanks in about 2 weeks because we are using it for the fridge, heater, and water heater. Monitoring our propane tank usage daily, along with our water and electrical usage, is really important to make sure that we do not run out. We've been using our Mopeka tank check continuously for about 1.5 years, and it has worked flawlessly. The only thing I've had to do is change the batteries a couple of times. They're supposed to last a year, but I've only gotten about 9 months between battery changes. It really helps us decide when to get our propane tanks filled when we are traveling from spot to spot every 2 weeks or so. Can we wait until the next stop? It also helps us make sure we drain our tank all the way to empty before refilling it. When the gauge says empty, it's empty. This really helps us save money when we're buying propane at locations that charge a set fee instead of by the gallon. Have you used the Mopeka tank check sensor to keep track of your propane usage? Or do you have a different way of keeping track? Please share your experience in the comments below. You can also leave a message on our Instagram and Facebook pages. We do lots of product review videos like this, campground tours, RV DIY projects, how-tos, and of course, full-time RV travel experiences. If you like that kind of stuff, please consider subscribing to our channel by clicking this link below. It would really help us out. I will also leave a link right over here for something for you to check out next. And remember, downsizing does make sense.